Well, today we have a returning guest, someone that we enjoyed speaking with in our recent conversation. We have Knox County Mayor of Tennessee, Glenn Jacobs. How you doing, sir?
Hey, David, I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Now we did a great discussion, kind of an overview of your career, and then right after that, you I saw you online. You were going down to the border, and I thought, well, I'm always trying to find folks who are eyewitnesses to the scene at the border, what it's actually looking like, what's going on. There's so many different narratives about what's happening down there. So I thought, it'd be great to touch back with you to see what you were doing down there and what you saw.
Yeah, and thanks for asking that. And for me, part of the reason I went was because of all the different narratives that you hear, right? Just to kind of see things firsthand. So I'd been invited along with some other local elected officials by United States Senator from Tennessee, Bill Hagerty, to go down to the border. We went to Eagle Pass, as well as Kinney County, Texas. Kinney County is it's about 45 minutes or so from Eagle Pass. It's obviously down in South Texas. Texas is a big state. They have big counties, but in that area, there's not a whole lot of people. So our first stop was in Kinney County. Kinney County is about 1,400 square miles, which is enormous, but they only have 3,100 people. The sheriff there was just talking about how everything, the local services have just been overwhelmed with everything going on. Their criminal court used to meet like once a month. Now it's 3 weeks out of every month that they're having court, and just everything is again just overwhelmed. The state is supplying them with a highway patrol to augment their police force, which obviously, again, being such a small place, they only have like 8 deputies. They don't have a big police force, but they were really dealing with all the human trafficking, criminal trespassing, all those sort of things. Then we went to Eagle Pass itself. That's what people have seen on the news, where they see these pictures of just folks literally flooding across the border. It wasn't like that when we were there, but the reason for that is because Texas is taking control, and you have the Department of Public Safety as well as the Texas National Guard that are set up in Shelby Park, which is close to one of the international bridges that goes across into Mexico. They've really done a good job as far as ensuring that at that area anyway, people aren't just literally walking or wading across the river. But they will tell you that what they've really done is like trying to squeeze jello. So you control it in this area, and it kind of goes out to the other areas. But again, just completely overwhelmed. We talked to a rancher there. His family has had this property since the 1930s. I think they have about 1,500 acres. But they've had a lot of issues as far as he can't even run cattle on his property anymore because his fence has been cut so many times. Also, the railroad runs right through the middle of his property. So you have people jumping on and off the train on his ranch. He talked about like people that have been injured and some of the horrible things that he's seen. One of my overriding thoughts, impressions, is this is not, when we think about illegal immigration, generally think about folks that are coming here for economic opportunity, right? And all those
Yeah.
sort of things. It's in haphazard and sort of organic, if that makes sense. Well, now it's not. I mean, the cartels are running this whole thing. It's a very sophisticated, very organized operation. In fact, the cartel even tells people, don't try to go into the United States illegally. That's too hard and it takes too long. We'll get you across the border. And that's really bad for everybody, not only the folks that live in South Texas, but also actually for the migrants themselves, because they're essentially trusting their lives with just, these horrible criminals in the cartel that wouldn't think twice about just killing you and leaving your body in the middle of the desert. So
Yeah.
it's a horrible situation for them.
So, so those are the two locations you went to, or did you go to somewhere else too, or anything
Yeah,
else?
yeah, those are the two locations we went to. We also spoke with some of the folks from the Border Patrol as well, and interesting to see their thoughts on the situation there too.
Now, you're mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. It's a little bit of a distance from the border. What brought you down there? I mean, how did
Well,
you see? Yeah,
again, my own natural curiosity about what
yeah,
was happening, but also it does have an impact on all of us around the country. especially law enforcement. Some of these elements that are coming into the country are they're criminals or people who have just gotten out of prison or wherever, and that's not a comforting thought. As well as you think about just the local governments, and in the end, we're always the ones that have to deal with stuff. Okay, and the feds might make their policies, but all too often is what happens is it falls on the locals, and we've seen that with immigration as well. Here in Knox County, we had an incident a while back where there was a plane load full of unaccompanied minors that had landed at our airport. I didn't know anything about it until I saw it on the news, just like everybody else. Then folks were sending me pictures of some buses that had stopped downtown, and people were getting off, and it was just kind of strange the way that it happened. Because they all had luggage and everything. No one knew who they were, where they were going, anything like that. You talk to our congressmen and our senators, and they don't know either because Homeland Security is not telling anybody anything. The State Department's not telling anybody anything. That's been one of the most, really to me, disappointing aspects of the Biden administration. When Trump was president, his White House talked with local authorities, at least in my case. We actually talked to the White House, especially the Department of Intergovernmental Affairs. We're even invited up to Washington to visit with folks and meet with some of these people, and there was an open line of communication. Now there's not. I mean, it's just not. We can't find anything. I mean, when you're a U.S. congressperson and your United States senators can't get information, well, how is a county mayor supposed to get the information? Yeah. But that's just, we just run into brick wall after brick wall.
So what happened with that plane of unaccompanied minors?
We don't know. I mean, supposedly they were, this was not the stop. They were taken other places, but I have no idea. Same with, we just don't know because no one's telling us anything.
Yeah. Did you see anybody crossing the border in your border trip?
We only saw one person that was trying to cross the river, the Rio Grande, and
they were just coming to get an autograph for you, right? They were going to go back.
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't get to talk to them because they had the authorities from Texas were there with them. Yeah. And the thing is that they can't arrest them until they actually set foot on U.S. soil. If they're in the river, I guess that's considered an international boundary. But what we suspect, and this is what the local authority said as well, that was actually probably a distraction, right? So while they were concentrating on this one guy, I think who did end up going back, then up or down river, you would have had a dozen people cross. And we even saw that with, looking across into Mexico, and there was a very large building where I assume they had their immigration people. And all that. But then on the outside, you had this patio and people are walking around, and there's a couple folks that are just the whole time that we were there, they're just looking across. And someone said to us that those are spotters or the cartel. And they're literally noting like what's going on over there. When do these guys go to lunch? Where's the best place to try to get people across? All those sort of things. And some of these stories you hear and you think, well, that's ludicrous. But after being there and seeing it in person, like, yeah, I buy that. I think that is what's happening. Just, the amount of folks that are being shuttled across and the way that's all happening. Again, this situation is completely different than it was even half a dozen years ago or so.
Yeah. So it's as you mentioned that one town of 3,100 being inundated with criminal hearings. What are these crimes that they're seeing? Did they get into it?
Yeah, a lot of criminal trespassing, people on private property where they shouldn't be. As I noted in Eagle Pass, the rancher that had his fence cut so many times. One of the other impressions that I got was the people have changed. Okay, this rancher was telling us that it used to be people would cut his fence to cross his property. They would actually fix the fence behind them, right? And they would maybe knock on the ranch house door and, hey, do you have some work that we could do for a couple days? Could we stay here? Okay. Now, cut the fence. They just go in. Don't worry about it. He woke up one night and there were 20 people in his kitchen drinking his beer out of his refrigerator, right? So there's that kind of entitlement mentality as well, as you're going to give us what we want, as opposed to, hey, we're in a bad situation. Can you help us out? But criminal trespassing like that, human trafficking, just all sorts of criminal mischief, high speed chases, and all those sort of things.
Are you, it seems it's hard to believe that could change so quickly. Why do you think the character or the disposition of these folks coming over has changed so rapidly?
I think that has a lot to do with the cartel
Yeah,
and the fact that they're no longer they're no longer, again, folks that are just on their own looking for better life.
yeah,
Now, it there's I think there's a lot of criminal element, and also you also have people, I think, that would, the cartel's like, hey, you're going to pay us or we're going to kill your family back in Mexico.
yeah,
All those sort of things. So
yeah,
again, I think the bigger picture is this is not like when we think of illegal immigration, this is not that. This is actually a criminal operation. It's a huge, massive human trafficking operation. We were told now that the human trafficking, the revenue and the profits that the cartel gets off of human trafficking are actually more than drug trafficking. So what you'll see is in different parts of the border, you have, I hate to put it this way, but you have different products coming across. In one part of the border, you have fentanyl and all the illicit drugs. In another part of the border, you have human beings. Both of them are very bad, obviously.
yeah. Did you notice a demographic? They seem to say that young men, 20-year-old men, is the primary one people are seeing coming over. Is that what they're
Yeah, I
saying to you?
didn't see that.
Yeah.
Again, the rancher that we talked to said that he'd seen a lot of young men from various countries, and that's something else we were told. It's we often think of folks from Mexico, but Mexico is actually almost become a transit point now. People are coming up from Central and South America, as well as all over the world, from Asia, Middle East, Africa, you name it. But I can't verify any of that myself because that's just from talking with the people there, what they've seen.
You mentioned that in the park that the Texas government has taken over, some of the situation there. Is that the park where they had that little standoff thing in the news between
Yeah.
Biden and where's that stand now? Where's the legal
Yeah,
standing now?
actually, it was interesting because talking again with the people on the ground there, they said that the media had really blown that out of proportion. That they get along, the Department of Public Safety and the National Guard, they work with the folks at the Border Patrol, so they all get along on that level. Obviously, when you get up higher than that, you have some turf battles going on, but that they seem to indicate that that was not as big a deal as the media made it out to be. There was not going to be another Fort Sumter at Selby Park in Texas.
So what's to stop Texas from sealing off the rest of their border, or how does that work legally there?
I think, well, for instance, Tennessee is sending some National Guard people down to help with that. But for them, it's just having the resources to do that, as well as monitor. You can put the structure up too. What they had is they had um, the cargo containers you might see on a semi truck. They put those, and then in front of that, right up against the water, they lined it with razor wire and concertina wire. And you could tell that was pretty secure. But obviously, people are going to figure out a way to go over that, whether they throw clothing or whatever over the top of the razor wire, or they even said that yes, people will dig underneath that. So I think the bigger issue is how do you police it and how do you can build a physical structure, but people are going to figure out a way to get around that. I think one of the most important things that we need to do as a country is really look at immigration reform and how giving people free stuff attracts folks to come here, right? And even we saw what are called comfort stations. And again, I didn't see this up close, but I did see what they were talking about. So they'll have a beacon light, a blue light flashing on a tower, and people can stop there and they can get food and water. They can charge their cell phones, of all things, and that's also another challenge is technology. So now when the cartels are doing the smuggling, the routes no longer look for a windmill and then whatever water tower, whatever. Now they just drop pins on GPS, so you just literally follow a path on your cell phone. But we should stop doing all those things. The
Yeah.
more that you provide a magnet for people to come here illegally, the more people are going to get to do that. And again, we were told that what the cartel will do, the cartel will actually discourage people from following the legal channels. Obviously, there's a profit motive there when they can charge them several $1,000s to come over illegally, as opposed to not making any money when they cross the border legally.
Yeah. A lot of folks have been going, Dr. Brett Weinstein and Chris Martinson. There's another guy that's popular in media. They've both been down to the Darien Pass in Panama to see where this journey begins for many of these folks coming to America. Have you looked into that whole situation and how they said they arrived there? And another journalist named Laura Loomer was saying she got on a bus and she was asking them, who provided this very nice bus to gather all these immigrants at Panama and start moving them along the line. And it's a very well coordinated thing. There's maps, big NGO groups are behind this, using taxpayer dollars to do this. It seems like a very well oiled machine, this whole thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that, but I I wouldn't disagree. We were told, and this is from the authorities, this is not from some person off the street, literally that the cartel recruits people, say, one of the places is Asia and China, and it's $30,000 to get into America, coming up through whatever port of entry in Central America, then through Mexico and across the border. I think one of the things that President Trump did very well was basically pressure the Mexican government into doing some things on their side of the border to alleviate this issue. That's not happening now. And, obviously when President Biden got into office, he took many of the things that were working and completely reversed those. And so now we see I wonder how much of it is people thinking, okay, when Trump gets back in, this is all going to shut down. So this is our chance and we need to get across that.
Yeah. Tucker Carlson, Colonel McGregor have suggested some more nefarious ideas that all these young military age men would be recruited to kind of create a new military, since so many people in America are not interested in going into forever wars and doing some of the things that seem to be changing in the military's directives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, obviously, but again, there seems to be much more of a criminal element here. So even if it's not something like that, you can certainly see where there's going to be more gang activity and those sort of things, more criminal activity from just sadly from some of the folks that are coming here.
So as an executive of the government of Knox County in Tennessee, what do you think is the next steps that need to be done to address this problem? Is it the border wall? Is it something else? Is it just more resources for the state governments? Where do you see this?
Well, I think first of all, Washington has to take it seriously, which they're not doing right now. They're just not. You put an obstacle up, and I think that does help. At the same time, you have to understand people are going to figure out a way to get around that. I think for instance, they can't even keep drugs out of prisons. Okay, so no matter if there's a demand, there's going to be a supply. So I think one of the most important things that we can do is, you were talking about like the NGOs are making money off of this, is take money out of it. First of all, I think we need to look at the immigration process itself for people who want to come here legally. I mean, obviously a lot of this is above my pay grade. For people that want to come here legally, to me, I remember Ron Paul, Congressman of Texas, once talking about you almost need a two-track system. If you want to become a citizen, you have to go through the naturalization process. If you want to come here and work, that's okay. You have to actually, it's market-based. You actually have to have an employer sponsor you, but you don't get any of this stuff and you don't become a citizen. You cannot vote unless you become naturalized. So there's almost two tracks.
Hi, this is David Gornoski, host of A Neighbor's Choice and Things Hidden podcast, as well as some of our other programs like Science and You with our Chief Science Advisor, Dr. Yu, and our Seed Oil Survival series that we continue to have great fun unpacking the truth of nutrition. I wanted to give you a quick little message saying we appreciate all the support that we get from our monthly contributors and our one-time donation supporters. And we'd encourage all of you to go to our website, aneighborschoice.com, click on contribute, and make a monthly pledge today, whether it's $1, $5, 15, 20, 50, whatever you want to do, doesn't matter. Just be a part of building this new media project that we've developed to empower and inform, to inspire, to kickstart a scientific renaissance, an anthropological breakthrough and reformation in the church. All these things are possible with your support right now. So make that commitment today and help us keep doing the productions that we have. Thank you.